Molly's going to start recording it now. And so, yeah, we are going to get ready to start. And I also ask that if you have questions during the presentation to maybe use the chat, which is at the bottom of the screen. That way, rather than stopping and answering the questions, we can just do those at the end. All right, so I want to get started just because I'm not sure how long it's going to be, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. But in front of you is the agenda. So we're going to talk about, I talked a little bit about our licensing, some physical, so we tried to look at all those guidelines, and there's a lot. There's just a lot of information. It's a lot to sort through. And I'm sure we all feel that, even if you've started to go back to work, I'm sure you've come into some of these things as well. So we tried to break it into some categories that made sense. So physical changes, procedural changes and protocols that we're going to go through. What happens if your family is exposed to COVID-19? What happens if the state and country shut down again? And the social emotional health, and then some questions and answers. Okay, so here we go. So we are licensed through the Department of Early Education and Care. That's who holds our license. We submitted our plan on June 25th, and we were approved on June 26th. I was amazed that it went that quickly, but they said to us, after they sent out a 32-page guideline, that it was going to be a quick process, and it was. And so from there, we've been able to start the planning and the protocols and all the things that need to be put into place. We also use guidelines from the CDC, as well as I mentioned before, the directors' meetings, which I've attended for the last 14 weeks. Every week for about an hour and a half, we meet and we talk. And then webinars. So lots of Zoom meetings with Goodwin and Proctor, just helping us to kind of navigate this new world that we're in here. So that's just how we got to where we are today. And the health and safety plans that I sent to you, that is an addendum to your regular parent handbook that you will get at orientation. Those are in addition to all of the things that we already do on a daily basis. Okay. So physical changes, these are the things that we're going to touch on. The classroom setup, the class, group, pod, cohort. So we might refer to it in those types of ways. The outdoor space and some building improvements. So the classroom setup. We will be required to break our classrooms into smaller classes, groups of 10 daily, with a total in each classroom of 12 to 13 kids with 2 teachers. And we're also restructuring the classrooms. So we've already taken out quite a bit of the furniture that we're not going to need, and I'm going to share with you some pictures in a minute of the classroom that I already have set up. So basically trying to make room to give other children more space to not be right on top of one another. If you've been in the school before, you know that we have 3 floors. We typically have a first floor, second floor, third floor, but starting in the fall, we are going to have 5 pods, cohorts, groups, and we are going to have a first floor back of the building, second floor front, second floor back, third floor front, third floor back, just meaning where they're located in the building. So I'm going to share with you some of the pictures that I've taken. So this is, as you can see, so that we're going to try to really, give clear guidelines for the kids as to where they can play. There's areas already set up. And I'm sure that right now, if you're out and about, you're showing the kids different ways to social distance. We're going to use visuals because that's what works. It works for everybody. So outlining just different parts of the room. For instance, the easel, the listening center, the book area. This bottom left picture is kind of a picture of the whole classroom. And so 10 kids, and there's the back part of the classroom that you can't even see, will easily be able to fit in this space. And I even was able to kind of set up a mock circle so that you can see the kids will be sitting, it's at least 6 feet apart. We're going to do our best to keep the kids apart. Again, you know, we'll talk a little bit about that, but that's our goal, is to try to keep the kids from being on top of each other. And we will talk a lot about that just in our everyday being in the classroom, just what that means, and if you want to play together. So, you know, I was able to get this classroom set up, and I was, you know, it's sad because we had to take a lot of things out, but once I had it set up, I felt pretty good about it. I felt like this is something that we can do. And I wanted to just share those pictures. I wish I had kids in them so that you could see what it actually looks like. But some centers that have actually opened have shared pictures just like this, and they said it's working out pretty well. So those are some physical changes. So class groups, we will be trying to keep consistent staffing on each floor. So in each classroom pod cohort. So what does that mean? 10 children with 2 teachers. That's, you know, it increases our staffing and lessens our children in each group, but it will work. So keeping that mainly just to keep track of any tracing or tracking that we might need to do if there is an actual outbreak. This is the big one, no mixing of classes. And we're all, with our fingers crossed, hoping that this is something that they lighten up on as we get closer to September. It depends on who you talk to, but so for us, this is tough because we do mixed groups, you know, for different parts of our day, and sometimes in the playground areas, and also in after school or extended day. But right now, they are not allowing that. And so that is something that we are going to have to cross that bridge when we get to it. I'm hopeful, but I don't know. And limited sharing. So again, trying to separate the kids' belongings. You know, before we might put out shared toys for the kids, but now we're going to really try to keep things separate to minimize the spread of the germs. It'll be tough. It'll be a lot of cleaning going on, but we can do it. And I already had set up a few, I didn't take a picture of it, and I'm just thinking of it now, of, you know, boxes of the art supplies. So kind of rather than having markers out on the table, you know, Grace and Declan would have their own box that they would pull out when it's that time to, you know, color or paint or whatever. And if there is anything shared, so like if the kids are playing in the block area, for instance, and we have some blocks and animals, people, when your child is done, those are removed and put into a container for cleaning, and then new toys will be put out for the next group of kids. So we're going to do our best to make sure that there is no sharing of toys in the day. So schedules. This is not just like every day. This has been an ongoing scenario, and I've been working really hard with 3 scenarios, and we're just trying to figure out which one is going to work best. So the first one is obviously having the kids in their small groups, pods, cohorts, with the schedules that you have all signed up for, with it, and that includes extended day. I'm not sure that scenario is going to happen, at least the extended day piece, but right now, I have a scenario set for that. I also have a second scenario where kids will be in their regular scheduled, you know, the days that you've picked, but it will be reduced hours. So we would maybe not have extended day, so anything past 2:30, we wouldn't be in school. And then a third scenario, which has us as a 4-day schedule with longer days, but with 1 day off. And I've heard that rumblings that this might be something that the public school is going to do. Different systems have talked about this, and it might be something that we decide to do as well. And I want to try to nail this down as soon as possible. But the thing is, a couple of these schedules are going to, you know, affect some of you in that If you signed up for 5 days, if we only have a 4-day schedule, then that would limit 1 day. But I've asked people, and they've actually said to me, many of you have said, that that's a better choice, because it's easier to find care for 1 day rather than the scattered after school, times, which I understand. So I'm trying to be mindful of all of this. And, we are lucky because this classroom is set up. I mean, the school is set up in a way that is going to make us, able to do the smaller groups. It's just these other pieces that, are still so unsure because we're waiting to hear from EEC and DESE and some of these other agencies. But this will be the next big piece that we will try to nail down, and then we will, I'll be in touch with people if we in fact have to change some of your schedules. Okay, so moving along. So outdoor space, they're asking us to be outside a lot, and that's not a bad thing. Hi kids. But the big thing is we can't be outside together. So we are going to be fencing in an additional playground, and this is something that we've wanted to do. And so I feel it's a good thing that's coming out of this, and that we're going to have 2 outdoor play areas. One of the play areas will be what it is, with the play structure, the sandbox, which we've gotten approval to use as long as the kids can social distance. And with one group with 10 children outside, we can totally do it. And the second play area will be for outdoor curriculum. So we envision it more as an open space where we can do science, we can do math, we can maybe do some planting, which we've always wanted to do at the school, and keep it as an area we can bring the kids out and read or have snack if the weather permits. And so I'm really excited about that, because we are going to want to spend some time outside, and this will allow us to be out there a little bit more often. We also can take walks around the neighborhood, and we can use what they call it's a rope that kind of distances the kids and they hold on to it. So we're looking into a lot of these things to keep us outside. We know that in the fall, we just never know what our weather's going to be. So I'm hoping that the fall weather is going to cooperate with us and we can be outside a lot. All right. So these are some of the other building improvements that are going on right now. The fenced in play area. I've had a handyman come in. He's already did it. He was amazing. So if anybody needs somebody, I got a man. He was excellent. And he came in, he called me right away. He came in the next day and put shelves up so we can keep a lot of the things out of the kids' reach, and we can keep the germs away that way by not having to do so much cleaning in between. So that's already done, which is amazing. The walkway is going to be repaired, and we already have the first floor is already completely painted, and there's a new floor in there. So these are things that are ongoing that we started, and as soon as we got the approval to get moving. So I'm excited about some of these improvements that are going to be happening. So here are some of the bigger changes that, I understand about. They're going to be a little different for all of us to get used to. But, I think they're necessary, especially if we're looking to come back in the fall. So things that we're going to touch on are the daily health screenings, the morning and afternoon drop-off and pickup, cleaning and sanitizing and disinfecting, hand washing, masks and face shields, and social distancing, and what to send to school. So again, a lot of this you probably already are doing if you're already back to work. But this is what we're going to discuss. So we are going to be, we are requiring everyone, staff and children, to do a daily health screen. We are going to be doing this online. Yay. And we are actually working with Bright Wheel to get this up and running so that it will be all done digitally and at home before you get to school. So you'll be asked to get online every morning. So, you can picture it like getting up and getting the kids ready for school and then doing their health check where they'll answer questions online that you will have to sign and send in to us before coming to school. Maybe you're already doing this and you can understand that it's important to just make sure that everybody is well and feeling good, and do not show any signs of any of these symptoms. This will be the key to keeping the virus out of the school and keeping everybody healthy. If you, what just happened, Mo?
Oh, did I do something?
Yeah, sorry, where did that go?
Oh, sorry.
Hold on.
Here, do this.
Share screen.
Yeah. My bad.
Oops, that's my technical assistant getting involved. So also, when you do come in, and we'll talk about dropping off anyway, there'll be also a verbal verification that you have to do. And if you can't fill out it online, you won't be able to enter the building. But we will have some paper copies there, but we're going to try to get away from that to avoid, obviously, the collecting of all of that on a daily basis would be, some of the centers that we're doing it without doing it electronically said it has been an absolute nightmare. And so we are going to get this up and running before school starts. So that's something new and just a little extra for you to do before you get out the door in the morning. So I apologize, but I think that it's going to help save us in a lot of ways down the road. Oops. So Molly, why isn't it letting me go down? All right, so AM drop off. So this is definitely going to be something that's different. And it saddens me that we will not be able to have you come into the building. For me, it's a huge connection that we have with all of you at the start of your day, and it's how we get to know you. And I'm sad that we can't allow this at this point. I'm hoping that down the road we can, we will definitely go back to allowing you into the classroom, but right now, we are going to, have to just take your children at the door. And, with this Bright Wheel app that you're all going to be a part of, we're going to be able to send you pictures during the day so you can see what's going on. It's not the same, but at least it's something. So, early drop off is still going to be a choice at 8 o'clock. A lot of you were signed up for that, and that's always going to be a choice. And then our regular times are 8:45 to 9:15. And then we are going to have 3 separate check-in stations or places or areas, whatever we're going to call them. And so that will, allow you to get in a timely manner. It'll keep your kids separate from one another. And when you arrive at your drop-off location, you will, do all the social distancing, and you'll be wearing a mask, and you will come up and you will drop your child off to us. And then we will ask you once again, if you performed your health screen, take your child and bring them into the building. We do not have to get a temperature scan when they arrive. You can do that at home if you wish. We will be doing it throughout the day. And when I spoke with the Board of Health, they said that we should definitely be doing it during the day, because that is one of the key symptoms to recognize immediately, which we all know. And this is where it will get tricky, because I think that come the fall and, as we start to get deep into cold season, we're probably going to be talking a lot in the morning. And so that will be tricky, but I'll get into a little bit of that in a few minutes. But yeah, so, we're going to ask that you try to get there as close to being on time as you can. And again, things that we've never really cared about that we're going to ask is that if you have any appointments, that you try to do them at the end of your day. We're going to try to limit as much as possible anybody coming into the building midday, and, so you can leave in the middle of the day, but we would, probably just ask that you not return until the following day if you do have an appointment, just to limit where you're going and returning from. Hope that makes sense. So after school pickup or end of the day pickup is the same. They'll be at that same location to start and finish. Again, we're going to have areas marked off for you. If you have 2 children, then they'll be dismissed at the same time. That's one thing that I didn't touch base on earlier, is that they are asking us to keep siblings in the same group. It's not ideal, but it makes sense. again, this is not a requirement. They're not requiring us to do this, but they're asking us to really try to do this. So if there's a situation if you're thinking that that's not going to work, you can just please, reach out to me and we can discuss what the plan could be. But if you're running late, then we're going to ask you, I gave you my text, my cell phone number right there. So we're going to ask that you call or you send us text saying, it's Chris, I'm supposed to pick up Allie and I'm running late and I'll be there in 5 minutes and I'm so sorry. So just so that we're not, it's a little anxious at the end of the day and it's different for us to dismiss like this. And so, I understand people get caught in traffic and things happen. So as long as we can, communicate that to your children, we should be fine. So these are just a few additional things that are going to happen. So, they're asking, and again, some of this, it's just it's an ask. It's not something that you're going to have to do, but they're trying to limit the amount of people that are interacting. So, asking that only one person get out of the car to drop off and pick up. If you can have the same person dropping off and picking up every day, and if it's an older person as a grandparent, maybe they shouldn't be the person doing it, but I get it. We all rely on so many people to get where we need to be. So these are just guidelines that the state has asked us to try and follow. Again, we're going to have one child leave at a time. And obviously, remaining in your car if it seems like there's a long line. I think it's going to work pretty well because of the 3 different areas that we're going to use. But we're going to have a rehearsal about that, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But, these are just things that we're going to do to hopefully ease the drop off and pick up for us. So cleaning and sanitizing and disinfecting. So I find we do this all the time, all day, every day. So basically we're just going to be intensifying what we do. We are going to be using 2 different products. One is from Children's Hospital. Why did I write down that name? It's called ASELC Solutions. And also we're going to be using Certo Lemon Quat, which is a disinfectant and a cleaner to clean and disinfect and sanitize every day, all day. We have a 2-hour checklist in each classroom. We're going to make sure that we're doing this all day, every day. And we have this already actually set up. And again, trying to, clean things as often as possible. Anything that's shared will be removed immediately and disinfected and cleaned, and then before it's replaced. Playgrounds will be cleaned and disinfected between each group. We'll only be having one child in the bathroom at a time, and after each use we'll be cleaning the bathrooms and sanitizing, and also at the end of the day there'll be a deep cleaning that goes on. So a lot of this we were already doing. This is just going to be intensified to the point of just clean. And I think it makes sense when you're working with children. And all those high touch, frequently touched areas are going to be cleaned all the time. One of the reasons why they don't really want a lot of outside people into the classroom. So some of the other things that they're going to ask you to disinfect and clean, I'll get into in a little bit. But that is what we're going to be doing on a daily basis. I'm actually trying to look into a professional cleaner to come in on Sundays. So I don't know if anybody knows anybody, but I'm looking into that as well, just to have that happening as well before we start school each week. So hand washing and sanitizer. So, again, this has been the key to it. Keeping the virus away is just washing your hands and keeping that happening all the time. And we do this all the time. I mean, our hands are raw by the end of the day, but we're going to do it even more. So the key to this is just, washing your hands when you get to school, washing your hands at all these other times. We'll have hand sanitizer throughout the school. I've already, been ordering this stuff diligently since the closure, just to have a stockpile of it. It'll be available for drop-off and pickup locations. It'll be available throughout the building, coming in and out, before and after eating, anytime you sneeze or cough or need to blow your nose after you use the bathroom, touching anything after touching and cleaning surfaces, shared equipment, assisting children with any of this. Yeah, so hand washing, that's pretty much the key, isn't it? And that's what they've been telling us. That's what all the guidelines are telling us, is to wash our hands. So we'll be doing that quite often, a lot. So masks and face shields. Masks. So staff will be required to wear a face shield, mask, and also I ordered face shields. I haven't tried one on yet and worn it to see what it's like. But it's important, I think, for the kids to see our faces, our full faces. But we also know that the mask, the shield is not going to protect us. So, wearing a mask is also going to be happening as well. But there'll be times when we can take the mask down so the kids can see us. And again, requiring that the staff wear their face masks as much as possible, if not all the time. These are the things that I think we're going to find challenging. And for kids, it's not a requirement, but they're really, strongly recommending that the children have their masks on, whenever they can't be socially distant. And so what does that mean in the classroom is, we're going to talk about this probably every day, all day, reminding kids that if they want to play by themselves, if they want to paint at the easel, they don't have to have a mask on. But when they want to play with a friend, be across from a friend, that they should have their mask on. It's not a requirement, but we're going to really try to encourage the kids to do this. And I'm sure that you're all doing this now. I'm sure some of you are having success with it and some of you aren't. And we'll work together with this. I think this is going to be the tricky part for us in trying to keep the masks on, but I think it's the key to why we're successful here in Massachusetts. And again, parents are going to be required to wear a mask at drop off and pick up, and anytime you need to step into the building. If you in fact do have to come, then we will have you all with masks. We will have extra masks in the classrooms, and we'll be asking you to send extra masks in as well, but we'll have them available if in fact we need them. So I've already actually ordered all that stuff as well. So social distancing, that's the term that we've just heard over and over again, trying to maintain at least 6 feet apart and limiting contact between, individuals and groups. And we're going to do that in the classroom as much as we can. Is it going to happen 100% of the time? Probably not. And that's an honest answer. But it's going to be our goal. And we're going to try to remind kids. And I think you're already doing this. And so I think by the time they do come back, they're going to already understand a lot of this. And if they don't, then we're going to help them through it. Again, going outside one group at a time. We used to be able to, combine groups. And right now we're just not going to be able to do that. But with 2 playgrounds, we can have 2 groups out at the same time. And so they will actually be able to see each other. So, and again, we're going to organize our space in each classroom so that, the kids can stay apart as often as possible. Again, apart but together. So that's really what we're going to try to hit home on a daily basis. The sad part is we won't be really being able to get together for any of our events. We've had people coming into the building. We've had walking field trips. And right now, we're just not going to be able to do that. So, but we're going to do a lot of other good stuff in the classroom. So these are just the things that we're going to do to get there. But once the kids are in the classes, we're going to just make it like it's always been. So what to send to school, and you'll get all this at orientation as well. But, things that are a little different are shoes. Kids do send shoes in actually though, but we'll ask you to send in some sneakers or an extra pair of shoes that we can keep at school. 2 or 3 masks if you have them, at least one that they're wearing and one that can be an extra one in their bag. Lunch and snacks, some programs are not allowing anybody to use disposable, everything should be disposable. But again, if you send in a lunchbox, then it will be, you'll have to just clean and disinfect it at the end of the day. That's all. A lot of the little containers. They really just want to try to keep as many of those items out, but I get it. I think that we can manage this easily. And if you have questions about that, you can just, reach out to me. And actually, one of the questions that was asked is about this exactly. So we'll talk about that at the end. 2 changes of clothes, 1 in your bag, 1 in the backpack, and 1 to be kept at school. And a blanket for quiet time. And, they're asking us to try not to let items touch, which we're going to do our best to do, try to keep everything from touching, but it is going to touch at some point. So they ask, no extra toys in the bags, to weigh things down so that we can just keep what's necessary in them. And to label everything. And I tell everybody this all the time, just to label, because we get pretty good about knowing whose things belong to who, but if you can put the labels on them on the outside, it's just really helpful. And again, disinfecting your backpack and lunchbox and your masks daily, and your blanket weekly. So some of that is the same, some of it's a little bit different. So here is where the popsicle headache is going to come in. So even today, the guidelines are changed. They change all the time. And so we're going to have to work together, us at the school and you as parents, so that we can, limit the exposure and we keep the classrooms open and running. And, again, what we're going to talk about now is what happens if your child is exposed to COVID-19 outside of school, and also what will happen if they're exposed at school. So, Molly, is there any way for me to get rid of this little thing on the side?
What thing?
This just bar. So again, thanks. Great. Okay. So I've already contacted the Board of Health. I spoke with, let me just grab her name, with Susan Poria. She is the public health nurse, and Caroline Kinseller, and they are well aware that we are going to be calling them if in fact we have to. She was lovely. She answered all my questions. She's ready for the fall. And I said, we are being told that we can call you, that we should be calling our Board of Health. And she said, absolutely, that is what you need to do. So I tried to really try to break this down in the simplest way possible. So if a child or staff member has a household member with any symptoms of COVID-19, the family member has to get tested. The child or staff must quarantine until we get the test results. They need to be confirmed one way or the other before they can return to school. And if it's positive, they must quarantine for 14 days. If it's negative, then you'll just need to get a note just saying that these were different symptoms. They were caused by such and such. If a child or staff test positive for COVID-19 and they are asymptomatic, again, they must quarantine for 14 days. We will determine, Adam Street will determine if the other children and staff were in close contact with this person. The family and staff will be made aware of the exposure, and all this will remain confidential. And your child can return when they are symptom-free, or after 14 days following the test. And again, if they test if your child tests positive and is symptomatic, same quarantine, 14 days. Again, we will try to determine who was in contact and when it started. We'll let families in that classroom know about the exposure. And again, the child can return to school when they're symptom-free for 14 days, and the first day of symptoms that are fever-free. So that means without having any medicine. So this is the part that gets a little tricky, because we're going to be trying to really decipher a lot of this when this does in fact happen. And I do think it's a strong possibility that it will. The one thing that we want to do, and this is one of the reasons why they want us to keep in the small pods, is so that if there is an outbreak, then we can determine whether or not the classroom has to be completely closed down. I'm really hopeful that that is not going to happen. but it's possible. So we're going to try to plan, really for these scenarios moving forward. So what will happen if your child is exposed to COVID-19 while at school? So if we do find out that in fact someone has the virus. So the child will be immediately isolated from the other children. So we have to have a safe place for them to go, an isolation place. It's going to be the office. That will be where we take the child. We also have to have an additional separate space for all the children who are in that room. And so that is on the first floor in the front of the building. That will be a separate classroom that is not used. That is just in case we have to do this. It will be in case, so we have to close that room down immediately to sanitize, disinfect, and clean it. And again, we'll be with the child who needs to be isolated as well as the other children with all of our PPE on. We'll be wearing smocks, scrub tops throughout the day. And we will use a separate bathroom for the sick individuals. Yeah, so this is what we'll be doing. We'll notify you that your child is sick and you'll have to come, as soon as possible. This is hopefully not going to happen. I know that they do say that children, really haven't been as affected as the adults. And so we are hopeful that that remains the same. But it's a possibility. So again, we'll have masks if we need them. Your children will have extra masks as well. And yeah, that's our plan. I'm really hopeful that we don't ever have to use it, but it is going to be set up just in case. This is sure in the back of it, in the front of all of our minds right now as we move toward coming back to school. So shut down in virtual learning, something that we never ever imagined would happen, and it did. And, again, what's that going to look like? Could it be 2 weeks? Could it be? So yeah, we are going to plan for this, and we're going to hope it doesn't happen. But if it does, we will provide at least 3 days of virtual learning. We did a little bit of this. Some of it was great. Some of it was not so good. But we learned as we went along. We did the best we could, and we really were just trying to stay connected. And again, it's not ideal. It's definitely not the way we want things to look, but if it does, we are going to be having circle and snack and story and art time, movement, and a group lesson. I put a timeline in here, but if this in fact did happen, we could work with you. And I think that one of the biggest issues was if you were home with your preschooler, but you were also home with older children, a lot of this was happening at the same time. So we could definitely work out a schedule or a time that works best. And this is what we will be asking teachers to do. We'll have a grab and go packet again with materials to go along with what we're going to be doing. And again, hopefully it's just going to be, for a short time, if at all. Let's be hopeful that it's not going to happen. But, it's something that we're going to plan for. And somebody did ask a really good question about this that I'll touch base on at the end as well, as far as what happens if your child has to quarantine for 14 days. Okay. So tuition. So obviously, these are guidelines. They're mandated. They're restrictions that EEC is setting forth that we have to put in place in order for us to open up school. But there's a lot. There's obviously an increase in supplies and staffing and equipment, as well as actually subtracting children from our day. So, it is, basically going to have to be an increase in tuition. We've been open for 20 years and we have increased tuition twice. I know that's wrong. I've been told by Goodwin and Proctor and many other people that I need to get better at this, but we're still working on this. What I'm trying to do is to, once I figure out what your children's schedule is going to be, I can get all of this information out to you. So as soon as they're available, these are things that I have on my list to get done, if not by the end of the week, next week. but yeah, there will be, other programs are putting in what they call a COVID surcharge. I mean, to me, I'm just going to wrap it into the tuition. It just makes it easier. And again, I've already purchased quite a few of these things that are not even part of, our usual budget. So I think everybody is that's trying to reopen, whether it's a school or a restaurant, or we're all, hairdressing places, or we're all kind of noticing that this is something that has to be done. And so we will be doing that as well. So next. So social emotional health, the curriculum, the social story, and what you can do at home. So it's funny, our curriculum is always, our main goal for preschool, for our school, has always been the social emotional area of development. And I think more than ever, we're going to really be focusing on that. I think that kids are resilient, yes, but there's been a lot of change, and there's been a lot of differences in going back to school. Is not going to be the school that they either came to, or that they're, they've been home with mom and dad for, 3-4 months now. So there's going to be a lot of focus on how we can work together to make school what it should be, which is a fun, wonderful place to be, with lots of great activities, and still helping your children through what we're all going through. I even feel like myself and staff are going to have a training before school starts, just because it's been a lot. It's been a lot for all of us to get through. And so our curriculum is obviously going to focus on this. It always has, but it's going to probably a little bit more. But we're still going to have our theme-based curriculum with our awesome activities, and we're going to learn songs, we're going to read books. I mean, that's really what I want to convey the most to you, is that, yeah, we have to put all this in place. It's so important. And I know sharing this with you is overwhelming, because you're already thinking about it. But the biggest piece for us is just getting back into school, getting back together. And I think there's a lot of healing that's going to have to go on. And we're going to do it. And I think we're going to do it in a way that's going to make us better than before. So the social story that I sent to you. So I've always used social stories throughout my years of teaching. You use them for all sorts of different reasons. And the main goal is to take a situation and bring it into kid-friendly terms, and share it with them, and talk about situations in a way that they can relate, just like a book. But social stories can be even more individualized. And in the past, I've used them to help with different behavioral issues that might be going on at home, different things that are happening within the classroom. And so I was going to create one. And then when I started looking for the template to use, I found the one that I sent you. And I just thought it was great, because that's really what it is. It's just, giving the kids meaningful information that they can relate to, and that they can say, okay, this is what this is, and it's okay. And so if you're, having any issues, please reach out to me, because we can create a social story that's tailored to your kid, to your children's needs. And we use real photographs, and they're amazing. And I've used them, like I said, throughout my teaching career. And, I think that they're something that we might actually be using a lot more of. And the director group that I'm a part of actually sent this awesome link today too, which was about social stories. So anyway, it's just something that I thought was great to share with all of you, that we can certainly create if you're finding some struggles, maybe mask wearing or social distancing, anything. So what can you do to help us? So of course, staying home when you're sick, obviously practicing good hygiene, washing your hands. These are all the things that the CDC is telling us. Avoid touching your face, wearing a mask, practice physical distancing, limit sharing, label items, communicate any concerns. So again, we're all in this together. And I think what's wonderful about our school is that we do work together all the time. And that's something that I've missed so much over the last 4 months. I'm very very much ready to get back to it as soon as possible. So orientation and getting ready for school. So in the past, we have had an orientation. Our orientation was set up differently. We're not going to be able to do that this year. Usually the parents would come in small groups. We would talk, we get all the paperwork out of the way, and your child gets to kind of roam around the room. And I decided that I think that we need to just change this for this year. So I'm going to have paperwork days. A lot of you have gotten your paperwork into me. I really appreciate it. Usually we're well ahead of this by now, but because of everything, it's kind of taken a back seat. And again, it's a lot of paperwork to fill out. So I appreciate you doing it, and we will have a paperwork sign up that you can come. We can make sure everything's signed and sealed and delivered. We can talk about your concerns, and it will just be a 15-minute appointment, and it'll just be for you. And then we're also going to have rehearsal day. You know, I talked with the teachers about this, and we decided that we would have each class come for a 2-hour shortened version of their day, starting with drop-off and ending with the pickup procedure, not only to help with the anxiety for you and your children, but also for the staff, and to work out any problems that come up before the actual real day begins. I just think it's so important, where we haven't been together for so long and with so many changes, that it just makes sense. And again, your child will come into school, we'll play for a little while, we'll maybe do a quick circle or read a story, we'll go out to the playground, and then we will go back inside, get our stuff, and go outside. And again, it will be one class at a time, so we won't have to worry about anybody, you know, mixing and mingling. And I just think it makes more sense to do this. I'm looking probably at the 3 days before Labor Day, where we typically have our orientation days, 2 days. We're going to ask for these 3 days. And I will definitely get that information out to you as soon as possible. So, questions and answers. Well, how do I go back now to? So I'm going to come out of the screen share now and share with you some of the questions. Hi, everybody. Some of the questions that.
Also some that I typed out on here.
Oh, awesome. Excellent. Thank you if you've added questions. So, oh, good. It's good to see people again. So these are just some of the questions that you asked. And I always say this. I think that it's important to always ask the question, even if it seems silly. And usually I know that if I'm thinking something, usually someone else is thinking the same thing. And so in this time when there's just a lot of uncertainty, you know, I think it's important. Ask the question, and we'll do our best to get the answer. And I will do my best to find the answer if I can. So I just think it's always been a goal of ours, is just communication. Communicate your concerns, your issues, and the more we know, the better. Hi, Ms. Pam. So here are some of the questions that you submitted. One was, does anyone recommend a good fitting mask for your children? So I don't have any little children. So if anybody has found a mask.
People did a lot of great recommendations.
Oh, perfect.
And I typed them out if you want to send them in an email.
Okay, yeah. So Molly has some great recommendations here that people have already sent, and I appreciate that, because I don't have the little kids, and I do think one of the keys to wearing the mask is this is what I'm told, is that if it fits well, the kids don't even know. They don't even care. These centers that are open, this is what they're telling us. A good fitting mask is really key to keeping it on. So I will send that information that you have shared with Molly to all of you. One of the other questions was, could you explain what you mean by disinfecting backpacks and lunch boxes? Yes. So, you know, again, can you throw it in the wash every night? Probably not. But again, maybe when your child gets home, they're asking that you wipe it down with a wipe, a Lysol wipe, a disinfectant, and just let it air dry overnight, so that any germs that they might have picked up are going to be gone. And again, this information varies. It goes, sometimes they say it doesn't live on surfaces, and it does. So just trying to be extra diligent in keeping things clean. And again, with lunch boxes, if you're going to send a lunch box and not something that gets thrown away every day, then yeah, when it comes into the house, you know, might want to take it out and wash it right away and disinfect it. Maybe 2 lunch boxes. Yeah, so that's what we mean by that. So how are you splitting classes and our families together? So yeah, this is always a puzzle, splitting up the kids. And it worked. It's worked for once, you know, a few scenarios easier than the others. But basically trying to keep families together. That's what the recommendation is, and that's what I did. And also I tried hard to keep ages together, because I know that sometimes before we had 3 classrooms, we only had 1, and we always had mixed ages together, and it works fine. You just have to modify how you're teaching kids, because if you're teaching a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, then there's obviously going to be some differences. So it can easily be done, but I did try, when I was grouping children, to keep children that knew each other together. I tried to keep it as equal as I could with boys and girls. And I tried to keep families together. I did keep families together. So a lot of factors going into it. And obviously, in some instances, some of the groups or cohorts or pods or classes do have a mixed age group in them. But again, we, the teachers, know how to do this. We can modify what we're doing. We can assist your child. We always look at where your child is developmentally anyway, regardless of you know, a whole classroom of 4-year-olds. We look at what your child can do, and we support them and we help them. And that's how we teach. And that's what we'll be doing a lot of this year. What happens if a family member is sick? Will my child need to stay home? So this will be part of that health screening. It'll be important to, you know, and I did ask the Board of Health, Susan, when I called the other day, and she said, really stressing that if you are sick, stay home, which we all know sounds easier than it can be. So, you know, again, that will be part of the health screen. And if somebody is sick, if you have a cold, then, you know, again, if you have any questions, you're going to call me. You're going to call me in the morning, and you're going to say, Chris, you know, I've had a little bit of a sore throat, but I think it's allergies. You know, we will come together on that, and we will make a determination. But the biggest thing is to just be sure that there are not other symptoms, and being sure that we can keep the virus out of the school. That's our main focus and our main goal. So, you know, again, calling, you know, I'm at school every morning quite early. And so if you wake up and you have a question about any of that, you're just going to call. You're going to call, and we're going to be there to answer you. Can you elaborate on the outdoor space, and will you take walks? So we did touch base on this. So yep, we're going to have those 2 spaces. And I'm very excited about this, because we've always wanted to do it. And now we're kind of being thrust into it, and we're going to have this second space that's going to be awesome. We're going to have a whole outdoor classroom set up. We're already working on ways to do that. We don't want it. We want to kind of keep it a little different than the other class outdoor space. So one for more moving and jumping and running, and one that's going to be a little bit more curriculum based for us to use. And yes, we will take walks. We're looking into ways that we can do that so that we can keep the kids apart. But again, if they can't social distance, they will just have their mask on, and we will take a walk around the neighborhood. We always love taking the walks, especially in the fall when the leaves are starting to change. We'll be trying to do a lot of that. Have you considered keeping kids with the same teachers in class? I hadn't. It's one thing I hadn't. I mean, it's funny because right now, you know, all of my staff is, I don't have enough staff. Let me just put it that way. So if we go to some of these scenarios, you know, I need 2 teachers in every classroom. And so, you know, some of my teachers don't work 5 days. They've all told me they will work whatever schedules I need, and they're amazing, and I appreciate that. So yeah, you know, I didn't consider that, but I do think that in some cases, they probably are going to have 1 or 2 of their teachers, especially if you've been with us before. They might end up having one of the same teachers just because of the way the pods are set up. Will there be any schedule changes in hours? So we did talk about that. So this is what we're trying to hammer out now. What is Milton going to do? And am I going to follow Milton Public School? We are going to follow their calendar. If they chose a hybrid type situation where they do 2 days on, 2 days off, we are not going to follow that. I can tell you that for sure. We are going to be in school every day unless we need to close. But what we might change is if they do a 4-day schedule, which is something that's on the table, we might also follow that. So right now, my biggest piece, and I may send out a quick survey for all of you, like another survey. I know, I'm sorry, but it's the best way for me to get the information as to what you think is better. I already have a good idea, but before we make that final decision, we need to just make sure that we're going to be able to accommodate you the best way possible. Let's see. Plastic lunch boxes and bentos, can we use those, or would you prefer throwaway bags? I'm pretty much fine with either. I do know that we're going to be cleaning and disinfecting crazy, so we will probably be cleaning your lunchbox before we put it in the bag. But yeah, we're okay with that. I know some centers are not allowing that. Please use just brown bags. And it makes sense, but I get it, because we will not be able to microwave any food this year. So, you're going to want to have your kids' things cold. And so it probably doesn't make sense to keep them in the bags that get thrown away. So what happens if my child is out for 14 days, whether there's a household member who has been exposed or they have contracted the virus? Are you going to offer anything? So, I hadn't thought about this, but yeah, we absolutely can do this. We can probably do, now that I know how to do Facebook Live, we can do that. We can maybe do Zoom, but it would make sense if your child's going to be out for an extended period of time. Yeah, we can probably just get on and have them be with us in the classroom while we're having, at certain parts of the day, it might not make sense, but during circle time, during snack time, during some story times, we can access for that part of our day for you. And you can just have your child be at home, but be with us. And it's not something that I thought about, but it makes sense. And we will be, if we do in fact have to close, whether it's the state mandating it, we will do our virtual learning. All the teachers will be on board with that. Will kids need to wear masks at school? These are just questions that everybody asked. We're going to highly recommend it. We're going to do our best to keep masks on. Obviously not at snack, at rest time, at lunchtime. If they're outside, they can take it off a little bit. But teachers will be required to wear their masks pretty much all the time, especially when we can't social distance. But we will have the shields as well. And how will you keep the kids 6 feet apart? Well, that helps because of the pods and the small class sizes. We're removing a lot of furniture, sensory tables, furniture that we're probably not going to need. And so it's really going to give us a lot of space. And it's going to work. I already have it visualized. I have only been able to set up that one classroom because we're doing some other big renovations in the building right now. But I already have a vision. Actually went with my husband yesterday and we did it in his classrooms, which are much smaller and actually have a shared space. So, and I've been in contact with a lot of these directors who are already set up their classes, and it can be done. And in our case, we are pretty separate. We're in separate spaces altogether, which is great. And again, a lot of reminders. I'm thinking, remember, we're going to try to stay as far away from each other as we can. You can play together, but try to keep your space. And I think you guys are already doing all this anyway. Following the Milton Public School protocol. So we are not going to, if they do in fact do a hybrid type of programming in the fall, which is highly likely, we will not be doing that. We will be in school every day. We just think that's just the best course for us, but we will follow some of the other guidelines. And some of the other questions that were asked during the presentation that Molly got for me. So the brands, I will, is that anything?
Starts right up
Oh,
here.
are there any supplies we can get our children at the beginning of the school to lessen the amount? You know, I always appreciate when families want to donate things to us. And I usually am grateful, but I really don't like to ask about that. So I'll put it this way. If you wanted to donate something, that's wonderful. That's your choice, but it's certainly not necessary. We already have, if you came to the school right now and you saw the hallway is filled with items. And if in fact we started to run low on something, you know, I might email to you and say, guys, if anybody has any extra gloves, maybe you could send them in. But right now we have all the items that we need. So I appreciate that. Do 3-year-olds have to wear masks? So as I said, it's not a requirement, but it is highly recommended. If you are having trouble with this, we will work with you. You know, I realize that this is stressful for people because it could become a struggle just for you at home, but in school, if you can believe it, they will do it. So if you are having trouble getting your child to wear a mask at home or out, and then you get to school, we can help with that. So it's not a requirement, but it's very, very, you know, really highly recommended. So do you know approximately how far away the drop-off locations will be and where we can park? Good question. Try to avoid, so here's the thing. Yes, we are going to be using the main entrance for one classroom. The fireplace entrance, which people don't know what I'm talking about, the ramp is going to be a second entrance, and there's a fireplace in that room. I always call it the fireplace room. And then the church main entrance, they're allowing us to come in that doorway. And so we will be able to, on bad weather, have the kids sectioned out, not close to each other, but in an area. And as for parking, I haven't asked if this is going to be something that's allowed, but we might be able to partition off some of that part. I'm there pretty early, but I only am one person. I could park my car in some of these places, but I think that is going to be the tricky part. You might need to park on Grafton. This isn't something that I don't have an answer to yet, but I will try to brainstorm and come up with this. It's always tricky, even at regular drop-off. The parking in East Milton is difficult, but maybe we can work with the town to come up with a solution that works for us, where we can maybe hold those spots for a certain time. I don't know. If anybody has a solution to that or a plan, they could throw it out to me. But I will start brainstorming about that as well.
Talked about those masks.
Okay, yeah.
There's
Our nap mats, sleeping bags, okay. All right, so we would prefer just when you come to orientation, I will show you the blanket that's preferable, but it needs to fit into a jumbo size, which is a 3-gallon bag. So not a big puffy thing, but something that's a little bit heavier that fits in the bag, and, you know, no sleeping bags, and we'll send those home weekly. We have mats for the kids, so you don't have to send a mat at all. We already have that, and those will be disinfected and cleaned after every use. We actually did that quite often anyway, but we'll just make sure that we do it on a daily basis and be something that the kids can help us with, at least the cleaning part of it. Will children have to get retested after they test positive to get cleared? Again, these are guidelines that I will be looking towards the experts, the Board of Health. I know that they are asking different people, like if you get tested and it comes back negative or positive, then you have to have so many tests negative. So right now, I will have to find that answer for you. I know these are the answers that you really want to know, but I really don't know how many times will be required for you to get tested before you can return. I don't know if anybody knows any children who have actually tested positive and what the protocol has been. So I know adults, but I haven't known really any children thus far. will we still be charged tuition if my child is quarantined for 14 days or if the classroom is shut down? So this is something that actually I'm on 2 director boards, one with the directors that are in the whole state of Massachusetts, some that are all over Massachusetts. I'm also on the Milton director Zoom meeting once a week. And this is something that we just discussed yesterday. And, you know, we're trying to come up with a townwide way to make this work. So, you know, again, if your child has to quarantine for 2 weeks, yes, tuition will have to be paid. And this is going to be this is what the preschools in town are discussing right now. How can we make this work for everyone? If we shut down if the state asks us to shut down, tells us to shut down for 2 weeks, we will offer virtual learning and we will ask for a portion of the tuition to be paid. If it goes 2 weeks beyond that, we will ask for a lesser amount. And then anything beyond that, we'll just keep it at a rate. We're thinking 75%, 50%, and that's what the programs in town are discussing right now. It's tricky because we never imagined this to happen. It was a hardship for so many of us, and I get it though. I get both sides. I really do. And so we're going to try to come up with a solution that works and makes sense. And again, it's really it's an individual, everything's individual. Like if you have a situation happening, you have to reach out to me and you have to tell me. And that's what many of our families did. And so, the biggest thing is we are a tuition-based preschool, and everything that we do comes from the tuition. All of our bills, our teachers are paid through this, salaries, bills, insurance, rent, everything. And none of that stops. And we want to be able to pay our teachers. We want to make sure that we're there for you when you need us and when we return. And so this is what we're discussing right now. And so once we finalize how that's going to work townwide, I will get that information to you. But it is something that we're discussing. Given the social distancing requirements, will the staff be able to comfort and hug the kids if they need it? Assume there's going to be a transition time for these young kids who have been at home for months. How will you comfort and reassure the kids if you have to stay 6 feet away? This is the biggest piece. And although they're telling us that we can, that it's really, please don't hug the children, we will. I just can't imagine myself standing there with a child crying and saying, I'm sorry, I cannot hug you or pick you up or comfort you. We will be wearing scrubs. If that happens, we will change our clothes. There's all sorts of things that will come up where we're going to have to question how we do this. We're going to teach the kids how to have other forms of interacting. But yeah, I mean, a lot of what we do is that kind of interacting, and the kids are going to be looking for that, and some kids need that. And so I say that to so that if your kid is sad and upset, we're going to comfort them. And it won't be at 6 feet away. It'll be in a closer proximity, and we will try to, then take the precautions, washing our hands and staying, changing our clothes if we can. So that's the hard piece, because, preschool is, there is a lot of that separation that happens at the beginning of school. And that is the piece that I do wonder about. What's that going to look like? And, in the past, I've had to say to parents, I'm going to just kind of take your child and you're going to have to go. And that may be what happens, and we'll have to be comfortable with that. And then we'll just have to, change our clothes and be ready for that. I'm not sure if that's the exact answer that you have in mind. How will you be talking to kids about some of the changes during the school day, especially the physical ones, given how much of an adjustment this will be for them? So again, we're going to talk to them just about what you've been talking to them about. We have to stay safe, so we have to stay a little bit apart. And I know one of your good friends is over there, but we can't, be that close together yet. We can find ways to connect. within the day. Maybe we can write letters to one another. We can have some sort of inter-school connecting, and these are just small things that we can do. But, we recognize that, in that, maybe a child is going to miss seeing Miss Pam or saying hi to me the way they used to, but maybe we can figure out ways to do that within the school. Maybe we can do some different things within the school with Facebook Live, where if a class is upstairs doing something, maybe we can watch and put on things like that. So there are a lot of ways that we can do this. It's just kind of thinking a little bit outside of the box. How can we stay connected when we can't really be together as a whole group? And those are things that, with many smart teachers that I work with, we're going to come up with a lot of things that will keep us connected within the school.
So you already answered that.
I already answered that one. Is there anything that you recommend that we start doing now to help you ease the transition? For instance, recognizing social distance cues with tape. We're going to hopefully, I think that you're probably already doing a lot of this, but for us, we will be, I don't know how you would do that at home. I just use painter's tape and sectioned it off, but you can start talking, Miss Chris is going to have, maybe once I get a few more classrooms set up, I can take pictures and I could send them to you and you could show them, well, look at the classroom. Miss Chris has it set up here. So, I see this blue square on the ground. This is where you're going to stand, I think, so that you're not next to your friends. I think that's great. I can find some other resources about, I'm sure that there are some books out there like The Social Story about these things, and maybe we can share some of those resources with you. Molly's shaking her head because she probably knows a few already. Do you have a refrigerator for kids' lunches? No, we do not. So that's why I know that they're recommending that you send your kids maybe in disposable bags, but that's why if you do in fact use a lunchbox or a bento, or that you understand the protocol that we're going to ask is that you clean them and disinfect them every day before they come to school and when they return home. And we may even incorporate that into what we're cleaning, because there's going to be a lot of that happening. Have guidelines been issued that would determine that it's time to close school? For example, a certain case count? No, that they haven't. I think that that's where the Board of Health is going to come into play, and that's what Susan Poirier told me. She said, I said, what happens? How will I know? She said, you will call us. You will call us, and we will figure out that. It's again why they want to try to keep the pods and the cohorts, so the class is small, so that in fact, if a classroom did have to close, the whole school would not have to close. And I think that's what they're trying to avoid happening. And I think it's pretty smart.
You kind of already answered that.
And this is the last question, unless anybody else has any more. But what about upset children during drop-off? How can we handle the walk-away policy if this poses a physical risk, leaving children on the street who can't be handled? So we will, like I said too, we will, work together. If it's something that's happening on a daily basis, we can figure out a way to do this. And it could be that we have to loosen up on that policy, where maybe you do need to walk in with your child and start from there. But again, working together, coming up with a solution that's going to make everybody feel comfortable and safe and good about it, because nobody wants to leave their child crying on the sidewalk. I certainly would not feel comfortable with that, whether it's my child or yours. And so, again, we're trying to foresee some problems that are most likely going to happen. And we're going to have to work together to come up with the solutions. And, I think that together we will be able to come up with some plans that help if that in fact is happening. So with that said, that's it for questions. And, I really appreciate you taking the time to come tonight. It's being recorded, so if you didn't get a chance to see it, or I know there's a lot of people that are out and on vacation, and so it's a lot to digest. It's a lot to think about. And again, you have to think about your family and your child. And I want you to know that we will do everything we can to keep the classrooms healthy and safe, while providing what we've always provided, which is a warm and safe and wonderful place to be. A place that I've missed terribly. So I don't want to cry in this big Zoom meeting, especially when there are people who don't know me. But, you know, it's been challenging. And so, yeah, we're going to work really hard to get the classrooms in the school open again. And it's going to take a lot of effort from all of us working together. But that's what's always been great, is our families do that already. And even if you're new to us, you will find out pretty quickly that it's a very, it's a group of people that brainstorm together, that help one another, and that's what we're going to need for September. Yeah, I'm excited, but like I said earlier about the roller coaster analogy, I mean, you know, even before I got to this, like, I feel better now actually reaching out to you and talking to you, even though this is not the way I have ever done anything. Zoom was a TV show. That's how old I am. But now we sit here and we do these Zoom meetings, and it's a great way to connect. It's not the ideal way, but it's at least something. So I feel that there's a lot of planning going into it. And I think that because of that, it's going to work. So, you know, if you, even after this, if you think of any questions or concerns, or if you have anything that needs clarifying, or if you have information that is different than what I shared with you, please let me know. And we will work together to get the answers. And yeah, I look forward to seeing your kids again, and seeing you. And hopefully we will get off this roller coaster soon, because I really am never taking a ticket for this ride again. So anyway, have a wonderful summer. I will be in touch in the next few weeks. I might send, as I said, I think there are a few things that we just have to solidify. And yeah, I will see you all soon, okay? Bye, everybody.
Bye, Miss Pam. Bye, Miss Chris.